Hello indie game fans! As a quick addendum to yesterday's video, I messed up since Dawn of Man should have definitely been on that list. I got confused and thought it was in early access, hence was saving it for this video, but lo and behold, it is fully out when I checked. This was a big surprise to many in the industry last month for seemingly coming out of nowhere and performing very well in terms of sales and buzz. A city builder where you control a tribe of ancient humans, this has your usual resource gathering, crafting, hunting, building, fighting, and more. I checked this out myself and was easily hooked with such a compelling gameplay loop of managing your town and advancing civilization through the use of knowledge, with game changers such as the ability to cultivate grain or to domesticate animals. A simple play session to check this out got me completely hooked, so very impressed and highly recommended. In a similar vein, early access indie games in March 2019 were very impressive and filled to the brim with potential, so let's begin with some quick picks worth checking out. SHiRO 011 is a multiplayer third-person shooter where it is one shot, one kill. You have the ability to generate bullet time in a sphere around you and has online, LAN, and even split-screen support. Astrox Imperium is an ambitious open-world space game that has been described as EVE Online but single-player and has what you would expect from a space game in mining, ship combat and customization, crew management, crafting, trading, economy, and so much more. If you are bored with your city builders that function based on capitalism, how about a go at Workers and Resources Soviet Republic? A city builder that has you managing a centrally planned economy. This has some pretty impressive simulation tech behind it, such as the pricing of everything being determined by the needs and wants of your citizens and the global economy. Hail comrade and all that. The Wild Age is a micromanagement strategy game that wears its inspiration on its sleeve, namely the Kingdom series of games. However, this brings it to 3D and has aspects that make it their own. Finally, Undead Horde is an action strategy game that has you playing as a necromancer with the ultimate goal of world domination. It has pigmen or overlord style minions which you can command to attack your enemies, leveling up and RPG progression for the necromancer, equipment, shops, and more. I like the aspect where you can raise defeated enemies from the dead, and it is not just limited to humans, since bears, chickens, and giants can all be raised as well. Moving on, here are the top 5 best early access indie games for March 2019. Ymir is a multiplayer-focused 4X strategy game where you have to take a civilization of pigmen from the Stone Age into the post-Iron Age. I am very impressed with the visual look of this, and the way the cities are set up reminds me of the city builders of old, such as Pharaoh or Emperor Rise of the Middle Kingdom, which are games which I love. There is an expansive tech tree with hundreds of items to research, 7 biomes, each with their own unique resource to encourage trading, no direct control over your population and the economy, since all of this is simulated, and one key factor in the game is that producing too much of one resource can actually be a bad thing. Combat plays out in real time, and your troops have to navigate through the architecture of the city, where walls, bridges, gates, stairs, and more are critical things that come into play when creating choke points and building your city. While the focus is on multiplayer, you can play this in single player as well in the so-called classical real-time mode. Early access for this is tricky since there is no fixed or planned date for a 1.0 release. This is a one-man developer with a large number of ambitious ideas to implement, such as factions, religions, culture, immigration, and more. So since the game is targeted at a niche audience, if you do so happen to fall into this category, do consider checking this out. Nova Drift is a classic space combat game that controls like asteroids, but with a much more modern sheen and polish, as well as the very impressive upgrade system. Having played a couple of rounds of this, the ability to mix and match perks and upgrades, which then synergize and multiplies the effect, makes you feel so overpowered and is so much fun. For example, I had the simple spread shot, then had upgrades for increasing my rates of fire, making each of my projectiles split into smaller ones when they hit an enemy, and even an upgrade which doubled the base number of projectiles, resulting in the entire screen being covered in projectiles when I fired. This is a good use of early access since the base game is polished and very fun, but additional content, modes, and challenges are to be added over the next 6 months. Factory Town is a Factorial-style city builder, but in a medieval setting, where the hook is that this plays more akin to something like Age of Empires, since individual villages can be controlled. There's also a verticality to the building through the usage of scaffolding, leading to some pretty impressive buildings. As always, optimize and tweak your production for maximum efficiency. Over the next 6 months or so, more endgame goals, Steam Workshop support, visual polish, and upgrades to trains, water systems, and computational circuits are to be added, so perhaps not so medieval after all. Of course, Risk of Rain 2 makes the list for March. This is the follow-up to 2013's critically acclaimed roguelike platformer Risk of Rain. I've showcased this game before and was pleasantly surprised by its release, and my curiosity was in how the developer was intending to make the jump from 2D to 3D, since not many roguelikes use the behind-the-back perspective. The answer? 11,000 Steam reviews with a rating of overwhelmingly positive as of recording. The variety in playable characters and skills, as well as item-based progression and synergies, make a return, with one interesting point on the store page of theory, craft, and exploit endless item and character combos, which has me very interested. A new feature called the Prismatic Trials makes its debut, allowing you to compete on a global leaderboard, with more characters, stages, bosses, items, and a true ending to be added over the next 12 months. Finally, I have been hyped for Satisfactory ever since its reveal at last year's E3, and is reductively first-person factorial. The alien world here is lush and beautiful, and role-playing as the mega corporation employee ripe for exploitation. Gather resources, craft, automate, optimize, and gather more and more and more resources. The first-person perspective is unique, actually increasing the amount of challenge since you don't have an overhead view, and add to that the verticality of building a factory, and you can see the inherent challenge and fun. Early access is planned for 12 months with more story narrative, milestones and tiers to be added, as well as more machines, resources, vehicles, equipment and weapons. For being a compelling experience that just makes time fly away, this takes the #1 spot of the month. For more of the best early access indie games, check out the previous video or click on the recommended playlist, and I will see you after the jump.